This first tradition comes to us from Germany, and it's actually a New Year's tradition. And what it is, it's an old tradition that involved the melting of lead in a spoon over a candle. That's right, that's pretty dangerous. Inside the house, melting a spoonful of lead until it liquefied, and then taking the spoon and then pouring it into a glass and observing what kind of shape it made. And with that shape, you could take it and put it in front of a candle, project the shadow onto the wall, and then somehow see an image that would somehow predict your future. So it was a fortune-telling tradition. And so that's pretty dangerous, to take a candle and put it over lead and melt it. Now, being unapologetically American, all I have is bullet lead, which is not the right alloy to melt over a candle. So we're gonna have to cheat by heating it up with a blowtorch and then pouring it into the water. Now, interestingly, there's a whole list that allows you to decipher what shape you have and what it actually means. For instance, if your shape of molten lead looks like a field, that means you're gonna have some luck and happiness. If it looks like an eagle, that means you're gonna profit from your job. If it looks like a blob of lead, that means you're gonna get 1 million views on YouTube. All right, let's do that later. All right, the second tradition lives in, well, it's extinct now, lived in the United States. In the 1700s, the American colonists would play a game during their parties called Snap Apple. Now, you have to understand that in the 1700s, Christmas in America wasn't established yet. As a matter of fact, looking back at historical records, Christmas was actually 3 holidays mixed into one. Okay? On one hand, during Christmas, people would have a huge feast. They would go hunting all day long, and they would hunt wild game, and they would come home and have a huge feast for the holiday. That's very reminiscent of Thanksgiving, another American holiday. Also, on Christmas, it was customary for young people to dress up in costumes, because Christmas wasn't about children back then. Young people would dress up in costumes, and they would play tricks on people. They would barge into people's houses and sing carols until they annoyed their neighbors enough to where their neighbors finally gave them something to eat, some kind of dessert. And so you can see that Christmas was Christmas, it was Thanksgiving, and it was Halloween all together. So you can imagine a bunch of young people dressed up in costumes. They had spent the entire day loafing, not working, and in the evening they had a feast. Now during this feast, they drank a type of drink called wassail, which was apple cider, I think, with some spices. They also had another drink called Merry Wassail, which you can imagine if you had wassail and Merry Wassail. One was the alcoholic drink that adults would drink. And so after an evening of dancing and drinking and feasting, they would get this game out and play it. And the game was that you had a stick with 2 things, an apple on one side and a candle on the other side. And so you would light the candle and spin the stick, and then 2 people would stand around it, and they would try to kiss the apple as it went by without getting burned. Now, you can imagine this was an early drinking game. It's extinct now. I think it evolved into bobbing for apples. But all right, this third tradition is much more mild, but still dangerous, and still has to do with fire. In England, to this day, this one lives in England, there's a tradition of lighting the Christmas pudding. Now, in the United States, that makes no sense, because the word pudding in America means something completely different than it does in England. So try as I might, I could not find a Christmas pudding in America. I couldn't even make it myself, because the ingredients, dried fruits and nuts, are generally unavailable where I live. It's not practical to buy the ingredients to make an authentic English Christmas pudding. Even if I ordered it off of Amazon, it still wouldn't be practical. It'd be expensive. It'd be an all-day adventure. And after all that, making a Christmas pudding and lighting it on fire with brandy, like they do, wouldn't be very meaningful to me, because I didn't have that tradition when I was a child. So the connection would not be there. So the cost benefit of making a Christmas pudding and lighting it on fire isn't there for me. So we don't have that tradition in the United States. The next tradition that I want to tell you about is pretty much extinct, and that is burning the Yule log. Now, yes, on YouTube there's lots of people putting a log in the fireplace and burning it and saying, hey, we're burning a Yule log. But like the original idea, burning a huge log and having a party around it like the Germanic tribes of old did, that's pretty much extinct. Nobody does that anymore. However, I did find a log that we're gonna burn to be the Yule log, and I tried to match it up with a couple pictures that I found online. But burning an actual log outside and having a party, that is pretty much extinct. That brings us to the second to last tradition, and this one is not extinct. As odd as it sounds, there are still people that put real candles on Christmas trees, mostly in the region of Bavaria. So I ran across a couple German videos of people burning candles on real Christmas trees in Bavaria. And what's funny is I also found some public service announcements from fire departments saying, please refrain from using real candles on your Christmas trees. It's dangerous. So even though the tradition is going extinct, there's still people that actually do this. The last tradition that I want to talk about is one that is popular in Japan. Now, what is Christmas doing in Japan? Japan is 1% Christian. So why do they have Christmas? Well, the tradition is a fairly new tradition, and it involves the most absurd things. What the Japanese have done is they've taken Colonel Sanders, the proprietor behind the American restaurant Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they've merged him with Santa Claus. So I guess it's Colonel Claus. And they dress him up like Santa Claus, and he's the guy that comes around Christmas time and gives Kentucky Fried Chicken to everyone. And so fried chicken is a traditional Japanese meal, and it's such a popular tradition that the people who sell Kentucky Fried Chicken are making a lot of money off of this. Now, the Japanese got that wrong. They got that completely wrong. Christmas doesn't have anything to do with Colonel Sanders' Kentucky Fried Chicken. They got that completely wrong. But the fact that they adopted that tradition means something psychologically. You see, the platform for holidays and traditions is there in the human mind. Like, you need that. You need holidays, you need traditions. It's a part of your culture, it's a part of your custom. It makes us who we are. It establishes social bonds. So even though their Christmas tradition is all wrong, the point of it is that it doesn't matter, because it's the social bonds that arise from that. Humans need that pick-me-up. They need that perk. And so Colonel Sanders morphing into Santa Claus is a great example of, it doesn't matter what the tradition does, it's the end result that matters. And that is the point of the entire video. you.